One day, two prostitutes came to Solomon and stood before the king. One of the women said, "Sir, this woman and I live in the same house. We were both pregnant and ready to give birth to our babies. I had my baby while she was there with me. 3 days later, she also gave birth to her baby. There was no one else in the house with us, just the two of us. One night, while this woman was asleep with her baby, the baby died. That night, while I was asleep, she took my son from my bed and carried him to her bed. Then she put the dead baby in my bed. In the morning, I woke up and was about to feed the baby when I saw he was dead. When I looked at him more closely, I saw that he was not my baby." But the other woman said, "No, the dead baby is yours, and the one still alive is mine." But the first woman said, "No, you are wrong. The dead baby is yours. The one that is still alive is mine." So the two women argued in front of the king. Then King Solomon said, "Each of you says that the living baby is your own, and that the dead baby belongs to the other woman." Then King Solomon sent his servant to get a sword. He told the servant, "Cut the living baby in two and give one half of the baby to each woman." The second woman said, "Yes, cut him in two, then neither of us will have him." But the first woman, the real mother, loved her son and said to the king, "Please, sir, don't kill the baby. Give him to her." Then King Solomon said, "Stop! Don't kill the baby. Give him to this woman. She is the real mother." The people of Israel respected the king when they heard about this decision. They saw he had the wisdom of God to make the right decisions. Hiram was the king of Tyre. He had always been David's friend. So when Hiram heard that Solomon had become the new king after David, he sent his servants to Solomon. This is what Solomon said to King Hiram. "You remember that my father, King David, had to fight many wars all around him. So he was never able to build a temple to honor the Lord his God. King David was waiting until the Lord allowed him to defeat all his enemies. But now, the Lord my God has given me peace along all the borders of my country. I have no enemies, and my people are in no danger. The Lord made a promise to my father David. He said, 'I will make your son king after you, and he will build a temple to honor me.' Now, I plan to build that temple to honor the Lord my God. And so I ask you to help me. Send your men to Lebanon to cut down cedar trees for me. My servants will work with yours. I will pay you any price that you decide as your servants' wages, but I need your help. Our carpenters are not as good as the carpenters of Sidon." Hiram was very happy when he heard what Solomon asked. He said, "I praise the Lord today for giving David a wise son to rule this great nation." Then Hiram sent this message to Solomon, "I heard what you asked for. I will give you all the cedar trees and the fir trees you want. My servants will bring them down from Lebanon to the sea. Then I will tie them together and float them down the shore to the place you choose. There I will separate the logs, and you can take them from there. As payment for this, you will give food to all those who live in my palace." So Hiram gave Solomon all the cedar and fir logs that he wanted. Solomon gave Hiram about 120,000 bushels of wheat and about 120,000 gallons of pure olive oil every year for his family. The Lord made Solomon wise, as he had promised. Hiram and Solomon made a treaty between themselves and were at peace with one another. King Solomon forced 30,000 men of Israel to help him in this work. He chose a man named Adoniram to be in charge of them. Solomon divided the men into 3 groups with 10,000 men in each group. Each group worked 1 month in Lebanon and then went home for 2 months. Solomon also forced 80,000 men to work in the hill country cutting stone. There were also 70,000 men to carry the stones. There were 3,300 men to supervise the workers. King Solomon commanded them to cut large, expensive stones for the foundation of the temple. Then Solomon and Hiram's builders and the men from Byblos carved the stones and prepared them and the logs for use in building the temple. Solomon planned to build a temple to give honor to the Lord's name. He also planned to build a palace for himself. He got 70,000 laborers and 80,000 stonemasons to cut stones in the mountains. He chose 3,600 foremen to supervise the workers. Then Solomon sent this message to King Hiram of Tyre. Help me as you helped my father David. You sent him cedar logs so that he could build a palace for himself to live in. I will build a temple to honor the name of the Lord my God. At the temple, we will burn incense in front of him, and we will always put the holy bread on the special table. We will offer burnt offerings every morning and evening on the Sabbath days, during the new moon celebrations, and on the other special meeting days that the Lord our God has commanded us to celebrate. This is a rule for the people of Israel to obey forever. I will build a great temple, because our God is greater than all the other gods. No one can really build a house to put our God in. The whole sky in the highest heaven cannot contain our God, so I cannot build a temple to put him in. I can only build a place to burn incense to honor him. Now I would like you to send me a man who is skilled in working with gold, silver, bronze, and iron. He must know how to work with purple, red, and blue cloth. He will work here in Judah and Jerusalem with the craftsmen my father chose. Also, send me wood from cedar trees, pine trees, and algum trees from the country of Lebanon. I know your servants are experienced at cutting down trees from Lebanon. My servants will help your servants. I will need lots of wood because the temple I am building will be very large and beautiful. This is what I will pay for your servants to cut down the trees for wood. I will give them 125,000 bushels of wheat for food, 125,000 bushels of barley, 115,000 gallons of wine, and 115,000 gallons of oil. Then Hiram answered Solomon and sent this message to him. Solomon, the Lord loves his people. That is why he chose you to be their king. Hiram also said, Praise the Lord, the God of Israel. He made heaven and earth. He gave a wise son to King David. Solomon, you have wisdom and understanding. You are building a temple for the Lord. You are also building a palace for yourself. I will send you a skilled craftsman named Huram-Abi. His mother was from the tribe of Dan, and his father was from the city of Tyre. Huram-Abi was skilled in working with gold, silver, bronze, iron, stone, and wood. He also has skill in working with purple, blue, and red cloth and expensive linen. Huram-Abi can design and build anything you tell him. He will work with your craftsmen and with the craftsmen of your father King David. Now, sir, you offered to give us wheat, barley, oil, and wine. Give them to my servants, and we will cut as much wood as you need from Lebanon. We will tie the logs together and float them by sea to the town of Joppa. Then you can carry the wood to Jerusalem. So Solomon counted all the foreigners living in Israel. This was after the time when his father David counted the people. They found 153,600 strangers in the country. Solomon chose 70,000 men to carry the stones, 80,000 men to cut the stone in the mountains, and 3,600 men to supervise the workers. So in the month of Ziv, the second month of the year, during Solomon's 4th year as king, he began work on the temple. This was 480 years after the Israelites left Egypt. The temple was 60 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 30 cubits high. The porch of the temple was 20 cubits long and 10 cubits wide. The porch ran along the front of the main part of the temple itself. Its length was equal to the width of the temple. There were narrow windows in the temple. These windows were smaller on the inside of the wall than on the outside. Then Solomon built a row of rooms around the main part of the temple. This row of rooms was 3 stories tall, with the rooms built, one above the other. The rooms touched the temple wall, but their beams were not built into that wall. The temple wall became thinner at the top, so the rooms on the upper floors were larger than the ones below them. The rooms on the bottom floor were 5 cubits wide. The rooms on the middle floor were 6 cubits wide. The rooms above that were 7 cubits wide. The stones were completely finished before they were brought into the temple area, so there was no noise of hammers, axes, or any other iron tools in the temple. The entrance to these rooms was on the bottom floor at the south side of the temple. Inside there were stairs that went up to the second floor, and from there to the third floor. Solomon finished building the main part of the temple and then covered it inside with cedar boards. Then he finished building the rooms around the temple. Each story was 5 cubits tall. The cedar beams in these rooms rested on a ledge of the temple wall. The Lord said to Solomon, "If you will obey all my laws and commands, I will do for you what I promised your father David. I will live among the children of Israel in this temple that you are building, and I will never leave the people of Israel." Solomon began building the Lord's temple at Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord appeared to David, Solomon's father. This was the place David had prepared for the temple. It had been the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. Solomon started to build on the second day of the second month of his 4th year as king of Israel. These are the measurements he used for building the foundation of God's temple using the old cubit. The foundation was 60 cubits long and 20 cubits wide. The porch in front of the temple was 20 cubits long and 20 cubits high. He covered the inside of the porch with pure gold. He put panels made of cypress wood on the walls of the larger room. Then he put pure gold over the cypress panels and then put pictures of palm trees and chains on the gold. He put valuable stones in the temple for beauty. The gold he used was gold from Parvum. He covered the inside of the temple with gold. He put the gold on the ceiling beams, doorposts, walls, and doors. He carved cherub angels on the walls. Then he made the most holy place. This room was 20 cubits long and 20 cubits wide. It was as wide as the temple was. He put pure gold on the walls of the most holy place. The gold weighed about 22.5 tons. The gold nails weighed 1 1/4 pounds. He covered the upper rooms with gold. He made 2 cherub angels to put in the most holy place. The workers covered the cherub angels with gold. Each wing of the cherub angels was 5 cubits long. The total length of the wings was 20 cubits. One wing of the first cherub angel touched the wall on the other side of the room. The other wing touched one wing of the second cherub angel. And the other wing of the second cherub angel touched the wall on the other side of the room. So the wings of the 2 cherub angels together reached across the room, a total of 20 cubits. The cherub angels stood facing the holy place. He made the curtain from blue, purple, and red materials and expensive linen. There were cherub angels on the curtain. When Solomon finished the stonework on the temple, the stone walls inside the temple were covered with cedar boards from floor to ceiling. Then the stone floor was covered with pine boards. They built an inner room 20 cubits long in the back part of the temple. This room was called the most holy place. They covered the walls in this room with cedar boards from floor to ceiling. In front of the most holy place was the main part of the temple. This room was 40 cubits long. They covered the walls in this room with cedar boards. None of the stones in the walls could be seen. They carved pictures of flowers and gourds into the cedar. Solomon finished the inner room in the back part of the temple. This room was for the box of the Lord's agreement. This room was 20 cubits long, 20 cubits wide, and 20 cubits high. Solomon covered this room with pure gold. He also covered the cedar altar with gold. He covered the inside of the temple with pure gold and wrapped gold chains around it. The inside of the temple was covered with gold, and the altar in front of the most holy place was covered with gold. The workers made 2 statues of cherub angels with wings. They made the statues from olive wood and put them in the most holy place. Each angel was 10 cubits tall. Both cherub angels were the same size and built the same way. Each one had 2 wings. Each wing was 5 cubits long. From the end of one wing to the end of the other wing was 10 cubits, and each cherub angel was 10 cubits tall. They put the cherub angels beside one another in the most holy place. Their wings touched each other in the middle of the room. The other 2 wings touched each side wall. The 2 cherub angels were covered with gold. The walls around the main room and the inner room were carved with pictures of cherub angels, palm trees, and flowers. The floor of both rooms was covered with gold. The workers made 2 doors from olive wood. They put these doors at the entrance to the most holy place. The frame around the doors was made with 5 sides. They made the 2 doors from olive wood. The workers carved pictures of cherub angels, palm trees, and flowers on the doors. Then they covered the doors with gold. They also made doors for the entrance to the main room. They used olive wood to make a square door frame. There were 2 doors made from pine. Each door had 2 parts that folded together. They carved pictures of cherub angels, palm trees, and flowers on the doors. Then they covered them with gold. Then they built a wall around the inner yard. Each wall was made from 3 rows of cut stones and 1 row of cedar timbers. They started working on the Lord's temple in the month of Ziv, the 2nd month of the year. This was during Solomon's 4th year as king of Israel. The temple was finished in the month of Bul, the 8th month of the year, in Solomon's 11th year as king. It took 7 years to build the temple. It was built exactly as planned.